When I was asked to speak about the idea of lead from where you are, I began by thinking about what leadership actually requires. We often associate leadership with position, with titles, with authority. We imagine that leadership begins when someone is appointed to a particular role and given a responsibility for other people. But I don't think that's where leadership begins. I think that leadership begins when we ask others to commit to an idea, to a direction, to a change, to a goal that cannot be accomplished by any one person alone. And the moment we ask others to commit, we encounter the fundamental question of leadership. Why should they? Authority may require people to comply. A position may give us the ability to make a decision, but neither authority nor position can make people believe in that decision. They cannot make people commit themselves to it. And they certainly cannot make people contribute their best thinking, their creativity, and their energy to something difficult. For that, we need trust. I believe trust is the foundation of leadership, and that trust rests largely in two things: confidence in our integrity and confidence in our competence. People need to believe that we are acting for the right reasons, and they need to believe we know what we're doing. Both matter. Integrity without competence makes us good people, but not necessarily effective leaders. Competence without integrity may produce results for a while, but people will eventually become reluctant to follow somebody whose motives they do not trust. Effective leadership requires both. This is especially important because leadership always involves change. We work in organizations and institutions that operate in an environment of constant change. Technology changes, the needs of people we serve changes, the world around our institution changes, and change is uncomfortable. Even when change is necessary, people have good reasons to be cautious about it because it requires effort and it creates uncertainty. It may require people to give up processes they understand and practices at which they have become highly skilled. It may ask them to invest enormous energy in something that is not yet a proven concept. So when we ask people to commit to change, we're asking a great deal of them. We're asking them to believe that there is a genuine need for change. We're asking them to believe that the change we're proposing is the right response. We're asking them to believe that the plan has been considered carefully. And we are asking them to believe that the difficult work required to accomplish the goal we have set out will ultimately be worthwhile. If we do not have confidence in us, hesitation is inevitable. Sometimes that hesitation becomes resistance. And over the years, I've come to believe that we often make a mistake when we encounter resistance. We assume that the problem rests with the people resisting. We tell ourselves they simply do not understand the need for change, or that they're too attached to the ways that they have always done things. Sometimes that may be true, but leaders also have an obligation to ask a harder question. Have we given people a reason to trust us? Have we demonstrated that we understand the problem? Have we questioned our own assumptions? Have we considered alternatives? Have we listened to the people who will be most affected? The longer I've been in leadership, the more important I've found it to question my own certainty. Am I solving the right problem? Have I heard from the people who understand the problem differently? Or am I defending an important goal? Am I simply defending my own idea? That last question can be especially difficult because leadership is not the opportunity to impose a singular vision on an organization. We often celebrate leaders as visionaries, as people who see a future others cannot yet see, and then persuade everyone else to follow them there. There may be moments when leadership requires that kind of vision, but most effective leadership is more complicated than that and more collaborative. Our responsibility is not simply to have the answer. Our responsibility is to help an organization understand the question it must answer, to listen, to test our assumptions, to invite people with different expertise and different experiences into the process. This does not mean everyone will agree with us. In fact, one of the clearest moments of trust comes when people disagree with us. If someone can say, I'm not sure I agree with this decision, but I know you've thought it through carefully. Or, this is not a direction I would have chosen, but I trust that you've listened, considered the alternatives, and are acting in the best interest of the organization. That's a powerful form of trust, because trust is not the same as agreement. The goal of leadership is not to build trust so that people will always agree with us. It's to build enough trust that disagreement does not destroy our ability to act together. In any healthy organization, people will disagree. They will see problems differently. They will have different experiences and weigh risks differently. They will have different ideas about what should come next. That disagreement can make our decisions better. But disagreement becomes much more difficult when there is no foundation of trust. Without trust, every decision is suspect. Every change is questioned not only on its merits, but on the motives of the people proposing it. Every mistake becomes evidence that the entire direction was wrong. And every difficult moment threatens the ability of the organization to continue working together. Of course, we must always be willing to explain our reasoning. Trust is not a substitute for evidence, consultation, or transparency. We should be able to explain why change is necessary and why we believe a particular course of action is the right one, and how we intend to accomplish what we're proposing. But every decision can't begin from zero. Effective leadership depends on building a foundation, a record of sound reasoning, honest engagement, and responsible action. The good news is, I do not believe that the foundation for trust takes as long as we sometimes imagine. Trust is built over time, but the basis for trust can begin with the very next decision we make. It begins with questioning our own plans before asking others to accept them. It means asking whether our goals truly match the goals of the organization. It means asking whether the course of action we're proposing is genuinely in the best interests of the people we serve. In my own work in higher education, that means asking whether a decision is ultimately in the best interests of students, faculty, and staff. It means ensuring my ideas match the needs of the institution. You do not need a particular title to begin building trust. You don't need a formal authority to demonstrate integrity. You don't need to supervise anyone to demonstrate competence. And you do not need a position of power to show that your ideas are thoughtful, your commitments are genuine, and your work is aligned with a purpose larger than your own interests. Every interaction contributes to your record. Do you say what you'll do? Do you acknowledge when you don't know something? Do you change your mind when the evidence changes? Do you give other people credit? Do you listen to concerns that complicate your plans? Do you distinguish between defending an important goal and simply defending your own idea? These may seem like small things, but this is how trust is built. And the moment comes when you ask people to commit, to try something new, to take a risk, to endure uncertainty, or contribute to something difficult. Those things matter. People remember whether you have been thoughtful. They remember whether you've listened. They remember whether your previous decisions were guided by principle or convenience. They remember whether you accepted responsibility when something went wrong. And they remember whether your leadership has been about advancing the organization and the people it serves or advancing yourself. That record becomes the foundation from which you lead. So if I were to offer one answer to the question of how to lead from where you are, it would be this. Begin by becoming someone people can trust. Develop your confidence. Know your work. Ask questions. Examine the evidence. Question your own reasoning as seriously as you questioning the reasons of others. Protect your integrity. Be clear about whose interests you're serving. Make sure that the goals you pursue are worthy of the effort you're asking others to make. Listen before you decide. Explain your reasoning. Be willing to change your mind. And recognize that leadership is not demonstrated by how many people are required to follow you. It's demonstrated by how many people are willing to commit themselves to something difficult and important with you. Because ultimately, leadership is not about where you sit. It's about whether, when you ask others to commit to something that matters, they trust you enough to say yes. And that is something we can begin building from where we are.